Well, I wanted to start, Jean, with just I was going to go through each kind of reason we started on cannabinoid therapy. So why don't we start with how your pain has responded so far to cannabinoid therapy?
It's improved.
Mhm.
It isn't gone, but it has improved quite markedly, actually. I tried going off of it and realized that it was helping.
Okay.
Um, I got on it because Ross had been,
Mhm.
um, and he he was way worse than I was with spinal stenosis, and I have spinal stenosis now,
Mhm.
but his was markedly worse. It had progressed, obviously, longer,
Mhm.
and it really helped him.
Mhm.
But more even than the pain therapy for him was he also had Alzheimer's, and his moods were bad,
Yeah.
bad. And we started him on it because of for the pain relief. And he was concerned that it wasn't helping. So I talked to you and we decided to take him off for a month. But he was so angry all the time. And I'd forgotten that he'd been that way before we started him on it.
Mhm.
Um, and it was bad. It was bad. I could hardly wait to get him back on because
Mhm.
he was just so angry. And I could not have lived with him if he couldn't have had some relief from it. He was on a mood elevator, but that gave him really bad dreams, vivid dreams. He would wake up thinking it was real and be frightened, and it was really bad. Yeah, so it was good when he could come off that, and he had no side effects from the cannabis. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting when we can use one class of medication, cannabinoids. And for Ross,
mhm.
originally we're trying to help pain, which it did. But yeah, that bigger benefit of improving
Oh
behaviors, the mood with dementia, and that's something we see often with our dementia patients. So, and that's what we're studying uh, as well. But yeah, it was so nice to see that the pain and the mood and
yes,
behaviors improved with Ross.
yes, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Now
And
you had mentioned the pain on your side was spinal stenosis. So I just wanted everyone to know that that was what we were managing for Ross was pain second
yes,
spinal stenosis as well.
yes, it was. And mine had probably reached its worst just about the time he died, because I had been caring for him for about 4 or 5 years, and I think probably it put strain on my back. I'm not sure, but it was about that time that I really started to not be as able to get around as I liked. So we decided that I would start as well, and it's helped. I do get around for sure.
Good. And I think it's important for people to know too, because a lot of people don't realize when we're talking about cannabinoid therapy, you and Ross weren't, sitting out back and smoking or doing anything like that. we're using, specific doses like we would
Yes,
any other medication orally.
yes. I had thought about trying it for him for a long time, but he'd had a catastrophic head injury. He had a motorcycle accident, and that had really increased the symptoms of Alzheimer's. And so I was nervous, and then I that's when I contacted you, because I knew we had to have supervision doing it,
Mm.
um, because of his injury. I was really nervous about it. Yeah.
Well, it's a good point. Certainly, because of his condition, the injury, you wanted, physician supervision. And then, as is often the case, you want that supervision as well because oftentimes you're able to reduce other medications. So once we saw the benefits with Ross, then we started to peel back some of those other medications that were giving him some side effects.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that one was a big one. It was horrifying for him sometimes.
Yeah.
The nightmares,
Yeah.
they were so vivid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And getting a better sleep, whether it's dementia, whether it's chronic pain, whether we're talking mental health,
Yes.
is so important. Now, I wanted to talk about some of the other areas or symptoms that we saw improve. For you, Jean, like with Ross, we saw the pain and the behaviors related to dementia improve. And for you, we were certainly trying to help manage pain, but we had some other goals as well. So maybe fill us in on how things went as far as your tremor.
The tremor is still there. It's better. I've almost all got off of caffeine, almost totally. I try to have just no more than one coffee in the morning, and then I have decaf.
Yeah.
The big thing was probably sleeping. I'm sleeping much better. And after he died, I kept thinking it was because of just all of that, the anxiety, the stress, I don't know. I didn't realize that it would improve with the sleeping, and it did a bit. And then when you tweaked it for me, it has made a tremendous difference for me. I'm sleeping a whole lot better. The tremor's still there, but I'm functional with it for sure.
Yeah. So kind of big benefit with the sleep, which for everyone, that's probably where we see the biggest benefit, most efficacy is improving sleep. So I was happy to see that with Eugene. And what would you say, as far as improving sleep objectively, you were sleeping better, sleeping longer hours. What did improving your sleep translate into for you during the day?
Oh, just energy level.
Yeah. Definitely
energy level. I was getting so bad that every time I sat on a comfortable chair, I fell asleep. Like it was just, I was tired. And I've always been a really active person, physically active person. And it was rough. I couldn't do the things that I want or didn't want to do. I was feeling almost like I was in a depression because of my lack of interest in doing anything. I just didn't have the energy and was honestly thinking I had a depression.
Yeah. So improving the sleep, energy improved, and then that depression feeling or mood improved as well.
It did. Yes. Good. And that was after the tweaking that you did. Yeah.
And back to the tremor, it's still there.
Yes.
Improved somewhat. So what does that kind of mean if we want to elaborate on improvement for something like a tremor? Like what does that feel like, or how do you notice?
Actually, my daughter noticed even that it was better. She commented one day that it seemed better. I've gotten used to living with it, but I'm a sewer, I quilter, and I was really having difficulty putting the pieces together. I really was because of the tremor. I still have some difficulty with small pieces and with some things that I do. Like one thing I have difficulty doing is the chain around my neck. I have a hard time putting it on. I can get it off, and I do eventually get it on, but I have a hard time getting it to be still long enough to find the right spot.
Yeah.
But it's better. I notice it mostly with my sewing. The other things, I guess I've gotten used to it. But with the sewing, it was just so, like, I could not do any hand sewing at all. I just couldn't manage with
Yeah.
with the needle properly. So
And now you can do some of that hand sewing.
I can do some. It's not as easy as it was when I was younger, but
Yeah.
I'm not young anymore.
But certainly better than before we got started, which is nice.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Good. Great. Well, it's a good summary, Jean, and I think a lot of people who hopefully do watch or listen to this will relate and certainly can benefit from your experience, from Ross's
Mhm,
experience.
mhm.
And the whole point of this is to have the insurance companies, our elected officials, pay attention, tune in, because here you were benefiting, Ross was benefiting, but none of
Mhm.
this is covered, right? So do you think it would make sense to see some coverage, especially in seniors?
Oh, most definitely. Can I talk about an experience at my at the Alzheimer, if I don't, at the Alzheimer's support group meetings, if I don't name anyone?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there was a lady that came to the meetings that I was going to, who was a lovely lady. She and her husband were barely managing. Um, he had Alzheimer's and his mood was terrible, absolutely terrible. And he was just so angry and actually was getting even physical. And she could not live with him. They ended up having to rent a separate apartment for him because of his anger issues. And I was so upset for her, thinking that they couldn't spend those last few years together because they could not afford to try the,
Right.
the cannabis.
Oh,
It worked so well for Ross, and I'm certain that I could not have stayed with him had he not been able to take it, because it just made all the difference in the world.
yeah, yeah.
It
Oh,
really.
that's so sad, and it's a great point to highlight the need for coverage, because we know these folks with dementia do better when they're at home, and we know
Mhm,
that there's a, an issue in long-term care and healthcare in the country with cost, with uh, the big influx of people going into long-term care with dementia. And one of the ways that could really help this situation would be to be able to cover the cannabinoid formulations so that sleep can improve, mood can improve, behaviors can improve, and we can keep more people at home as opposed to going into long-term care.
mhm, mhm. Well, the sad thing with them is that they were subsidized. The Alzheimer's Society did help them get some total subsidy for him to have the other apartment because they didn't have the money.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yet,
yeah. Look
and
at
yet
that.
it would have been so much nicer to put that money
Oh yeah,
into the CBD oil so they could
yeah.
stay together,
It would have been better for both parties, better for the family. And then
Oh, excellent. Exactly.
if we put our kind of cost benefit hats on, the cost of the cannabinoid
This,
oil, right,
mhm.
compared to a monthly cost of, let's say, maybe $100, maybe less, maybe a bit more, versus subsidizing an apartment,
Yeah,
right? So it just,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. It was just so sad. It really was. I just felt so badly for them because he ended up falling a few times, and he was so lonely, and she
yeah,
was missing him. It was just terrible.
yeah,
Just a really bad scene, I think.
yeah. And it
And
only perpetuates the behaviors, because when they're in a foreign environment, whether it's a subsidized housing or a long-term care facility, that foreign environment often leads to more behaviors, which
mhm,
it's just
mhm,
kind of a vicious cycle. So
yeah.
you brought up a great point, and yet another reason we need to cover cannabis.
Yes. Oh, I think it should be. I think it's just sad that people are missing out because of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
it's not, and it's quite expensive actually. Like it's
yeah,
costly for them. It's
yeah,
understandable that they can't
yeah,
afford it, that some
yeah,
people can't afford it. And we were fortunate in that we are not wealthy by a long
yeah,
shot, but
yeah,
we were able to manage, and I
yeah.
was thankful for that.
And guess what is covered? Medications that they give in long-term care, like antipsychotics that they try and manage
Mhm,
behaviors with, which we're moving away from in healthcare. But these are the things that are covered. The antipsychotics that have a whole host of side effects. Um,
mhm, mhm,
that's what's covered, and our safer option isn't. So another reason is certainly there's a safer alternative, and
mhm,
hopefully, Gene, with more conversations like we just had, we'll be able to move the needle on that.
mhm. Well, I really do hope so. I really do. Yeah, you were saying that antidepressant that Ross was taking with the horrible side effects was paid. It was
Yeah,
covered,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
would have been easy to stay on that because it did improve his moods to some degree.
Yeah.
But
Those dreams were
to
too
what
big.
to what end? It was not good.
Well, thank you. I really do want to thank you because you did such a wonderful job of articulating some of those scenarios, what you and Ross were dealing with, and I know a lot of people will benefit from what you just shared with everyone. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.